Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Markus of the GnG Elite Dragon Ball Super team. I'm here with another deck profile. This is my Shenron Hellfighter list that I made a decent performance with at the Orlando Team Celebration Tournament. Personally, I was 3-1 and an unfinished game, but our team finished 3-2 overall. The list is very similar to the one we got first with in Atlanta for the team event. Only a few small changes, and the biggest addition being having access to a sideboard. But let's jump into the list, and then I'll go over the matchups we played. We have 6 Android 17s. That's pretty much the ideal number. You don't really want less, and any more, you just see them too often. But you use them to absorb into Hellfighter 17. Hellfighter 17 is the core engine of the deck. It absorbs a Super 17 from your hand or your drop, and summons a Super 17 Infernal Machine or to further heights from your drop or deck. We have 3 Hone Moves Yamcha. It's just a critical attacker, takes life and makes your opponent discard cards. It's crucial in the grindier matchups to land one of these early and start abusing it with Child's Wish to generate card advantage of your own, while also denying cards from your opponent. We have 3 Super 17, the Infernal Machine. It's your main game finisher and your primary source of repeated discard outside of 1-star ball. Many games, you'll need 2 to finish a game, 1 having critical due to Shenron Figure of Majesty. You can't play less than 3 because, again, needing multiples, if 1's in your life and you're only playing 2, then you only have access to 1. But playing more than 3, it just clogs up your hand too easily. We have 1 Super 17 to further heights. It's a barrier deflect option that pops a battle card. Most of the time, you won't need this, but it's good against decks like Baby, where your Hellfighter 17 has barrier, and you absorb one of these going into Super 17 to further heights and popping their 6-drop Baby. It's very, very good for that purpose. It's good in some other situations too, like against aggressive decks where you want to clean up their board and can't quite end the game. We have an additional one in the sideboard for similar purposes. Aside from that, it sometimes is necessary to end the game with it against Shugesh decks. Game 1, where you are reading No Time Magic, but you're reading Shugesh Kid Goku, and it has barriers, so it can't be popped by Kid Goku. Hopefully, you don't end up running into that situation, but it does happen. Following that, we have 4 super combos, standard. 3 Crisis Crusher is one of the biggest additions to the main deck after Atlanta. It was huge all weekend, being able to stop cards like Awakening Talent Pan, Crit Trunks, Crit Gohan, Bolt Bardox from attacking, and it had the ability to pop babies if they were played turn 1, or even things like incidental card advantage gained through popping your opponent's time control Kronoas or Borgoses or whatever it may be that they played. So it was fantastic all weekend. I would definitely play 3 again. We played 3 Newfound Power Purunga. This deck kind of rips its own cards away by playing the Super 17 chain, and it's a good way to refill. Stacking the power on top of Super 17 also lets you end games easier when it comes time to finally swing out with your leader skill. And sometimes you gotta reset the board. Overall, 3 was pretty good. I sided 1 out in a lot of matchups where I couldn't afford to have 3 of this card, but I wouldn't have played less than 3 in the main deck if I played it again. This is one of the few Shenron OTK style decks that you'll find that doesn't play 3 Figure of Majesty in the main deck. It's a grindier style utility / combo deck that doesn't need to see the Figure of Majesty on turn 4 every game, so you can afford to play 2. This is an inclusion that is mainly because we forgot to add Demigra to the list for the last event, but being the card that it is, it won many games just by being Demigra. Many games you'll end up popping your leader skill, giving your Super 17 triple attack, and then playing Demigra afterwards, and that usually seals the game. Freezy Armory Healing Pod says whenever you revive a green battle card, draw a card once per turn. Helps to conserve card advantage, especially if you can turn 1 play Healing Pod, and your opponent makes you, or like attacks and you combo one of these into the yard. Turn 2, you can Child's Wish this into play and draw a card, and then the following turn, if you have a Super 17 in your drop area, and you absorb to play the Super 17 from your drop. Healing Pod recognizes that as revival, and you'll draw an additional card at that point. Though that's not an ideal line for your first few turns, that is a line that you can take that helps generate some card advantage for a subpar start. Following that, we have our 7 Dragon Balls, 5 of the 0-star, or the regular Dragon Ball, and 2 of the 1-star ball. I wouldn't play any more than 2, and wouldn't play any less than 2, mainly because we're playing 3 Dragon Radar. 1-star ball spamming is a good way to end a game after you've awakened and your opponent's running dry on cards, especially the blue control decks. You just 1-star ball multiple times with the use of Dragon Radar. And once your opponent's down to no cards in hand, if you have a Shenron Figure of Majesty in play, ulting your Infernal Machine is as good as game. We're playing 2 Power Bursts in the main deck. Nothing in the main deck it can get back, but it's a Sparking Negate that was relative every time we played it. 4 Child's Wish in the main deck. I wouldn't play any less than 4. It's essential to winning the game. You usually use it to get back Hellfighter 17, but you can also get back Yamcha. There's some spots where you're playing against Bloodlust decks where you'll Child's Wish for, or try to bring back something like Hellfighter. If your opponent Bloodlust, you just bring back a Super Combo or something and use it, so you don't lose the value on your Child's Wish. And then we have 2 World Peace main deck. World Peace can sometimes just go straight into Super 17 to get it back, but usually you're using it for Figure of Majesty or Purunga. From our sideboard, we had 3 Persistent Assault Krillin and 3 Final Showdown Son Goku. We bring this in against Baby and against the Hirudegarn deck and against the Height of Mastery decks, or any Shenron like big OTK style. You try to land this turn 4 from your hand or with a World Peace, either way, against those decks. And if they go all in trying to kill you, then you play a Final Showdown from your hand to pop against Height of Mastery their 3-drop Goku. Or against Shenron Gogeta, against popping their Gogeta, giving you another chance to win. And against Baby, it just kills Baby. We bring in Super 17 against the decks where we want to clean up the board. 2 Midas Killy Zone for the Bloodlust decks, 2 Dende New to the Job for the Child's Wish decks, or Shenron Gogeta if they just happen to play a objection. 2 Power Burst, additional negates against the OTK style decks or aggressive decks, and 2 Cronoa against the Bloodlust or the Shugesh decks. My matchups that day weren't terrible. Played against Blue-Black Hirudegarn round 1. It was actually Jonathan Rodriguez. Game 1 I made a slight blunder, and I shuffled my life into my deck after searching for Dragon Balls, just by accident. Got a game lost for that, but took games 2 and 3. It's a pretty good matchup for the hand control deck, especially if you can land a Cronoa early, keeping them from playing Pans on turns 1 and 2. He Tapion the Crisis Crusher both games, but by that time it was too late, and able to knock him down from 6 to 0 very easily after he has no cards in hand. Playing against Shenron Victor Strike at some point during the day. That's the match I didn't get to finish. We ended up going to game 3, but Trevor and Shane both won their matches prior to me being able to finish. Played against Baby Vegeta. It was another pretty close match. It came down to just grinding. Baby Vegeta draws enough cards that usually can't discard all of their cards, and they have removal for you, so you rely heavily on Super 17s and the Killing Krillin package to just kind of maximize card value. Played against Broly Lineage. That's the match I lost during the day. It's just a very hard matchup. One match where I felt like I could have won it, game 2, turn 1 played Crisis Crusher, turn 2 played Cronoa, turn 4 got out Persistent Assault Krillin, but he was just able to grind through my cards, and I never saw a Final Showdown Son Goku to go with the Krillin. 5 cards left in my deck when the game ended, and all 3 Gokus were still in my deck. So that happens, but it was still a good game regardless. Then played against a Mono Blue Gogeta in round 5. Blue control decks have a really hard time with this deck because as a whole they don't generate any real card advantage. They may draw 1 card per turn, but without any self-awakening options, that's all they draw. And this deck easily eats through 11 to 13 cards by turn 4 out of the opponent's hand. And there's not many decks that can compete with that amount of card discard. Any changes I'd make to this deck? Not many, to be honest. It felt very, very solid. This deck gets a lot weaker with the introduction of Tau, being able to stop you from, or make you discard your own cards. But Tau doesn't cost 1 against this deck, so it's very hard for them to get it out efficiently, and it probably won't make enough of an impact to matter. But we'll just have to wait and see and find out. You know, this deck I think is still very solid for teams. It eats up the blue control decks, and it would do pretty well into. I guess it doesn't do so well against the black Goku, Kid Goku deck. The Super Shenron deck it has a hard time with. Well, Shenron decks in general, it usually can't discard all of their cards. But if you expect a lot of Janemba, this is a great pick. I would play it again in teams if I had the option to. But other than that, that's the list. If you have any questions, then leave them in the comments. This was Markus with the GnG Elite Dragon Ball Super team, and stay elite.